partnering with Habitat for Humanity, and led by Grant Power over here, who works with Habitat for Humanity. And this was our second time kind of doing a joint effort and just partnering with what they're doing in Altadena. First time, some of you went to the Rose Bowl and you built walls and you framed. And yesterday we actually got to put those frames together on the first house being built by Habitat in Altadena. And so here was some of our crew from yesterday. You can see behind us, that is the framing in the first home in Altadena. A few people did not make it. Aiden Thompson, not in the photo. I couldn't get him off the ladder job, whatever he was doing. He did not want to take a photo. He was like, I'm out of the group photo. But he was there. I'll show you others. But this was just such a joy. And I want to just thank Grant for putting this in front of us and giving us this opportunity to bless a family. Just a little bit about the family. This is the Wood family who, like hundreds and hundreds of others, lost their home on January 7th. That was only 292 days ago. And to see that this has been fast-tracked to clearing and actually getting through the county plans and actually starting to lay a new foundation for two homes on their property. We got to read all about their story. I know you probably can't. Well, some of you can read that font, can't you? But I just took it. That was like hanging on the fence, their story of living in this neighborhood for over 40 years and then losing everything on January 7th. And as I pulled up there were no homes standing. I mean, the entire block, right there at Fair Oaks, kind of north of Altadena, North Altadena and Fair Oaks, right in front. I mean, the entire block was gone. And now they're starting to rebuild, and what a joy that we got to do. Here's some other photos of the day, some of our people that were there. Zayden and Bruce putting some stuff together. He was there, and Bruce putting together scaffolding. We were assembling I believe this is the back door, that our task as a church was to assemble the framing for the back door that was put in. And then others, Gina was doing paneling and her mom were doing paneling on the ADU. And so here's kind of where we left it at. So I'm excited to go back and when this thing is done and actually see it in all of its glory standing. And so Grant told me beforehand, if your heart is like, I want to jump in on something like that, they're going to be doing this on Saturday mornings. And even if we've not organized this as a church for a church-wide effort, talk to Grant right over here. Say, hey, next Saturday, sign me up, because there were about, 75 people working on the house. Some of them I met were just like, I'm just here by myself. I live in Sierra Madre, and I've wanted to do something to help rebuild this community. And so we got to meet new people, and just a really, really exciting thing. So thank you for those who came. Raise your hand if you were there yesterday with us. Look at that, yeah. A good portion of the crew, and there they are one more time. So an exciting day, and I believe, Grant, you told me Habitat is set to build 22 homes in Altadena and has the funding secured for 22 house builds, and this is number one, so there will be need for a while, and so we're excited to see where this goes. So that's what we were doing yesterday, and I hope you get involved next time we do that. All right, well, if you were here last week, we introduced a new series that described it kind of like a bridge, taking us to Advent, where, if you can believe it, we are now only 5 weeks away from Advent. Any of you itching already to get that tree up? You're just like waiting for trunk or treat to be done so you can put up the tree, right? You're just can't wait to get that out of the way so you can, fast track it to Advent. First Sunday of Advent, 5 weeks from today. And so the name of the series, and we introduced this last week, that's going to get us there, we're calling it Isaiah's Prophetic Imagination. And I know that's a mouthful, and you're like, what the heck is that? Isaiah's Prophetic Imagination, subtitled A Journey Toward Advent at Vineyard Church, Glendora. So, Isaiah's Prophetic Imagination, that sounds very biblically fanciful, doesn't it? And you're like, what on earth does that even mean? So let me just define some terms, do a short recap of where we were last week, and then we'll take the next step together in Isaiah this week together. Isaiah, the biblical book that we are exploring, takes its name from the person to whom it is prescribed, who we believe wrote this book, Isaiah. Isaiah was an Israelite who lived and wrote primarily during the 8th century BC, so you'd have to go back in time somewhere around 2,775 years ago. Isaiah was writing during the 8th century BC. He began his ministry, Isaiah 1, he tells us, in the year that King Uzziah died. He began to prophesy and write and proclaim. We know what year that was. That was 742 BC, the year that King Uzziah died. So 742 BC, Isaiah begins to prophesy. Isaiah was one of Israel's most famous prophets, not the only one. The word we'll define in a minute, but Isaiah was a prophet, and therefore his writings, his book, falls under the general category, or I guess the word we could use is genre, that we would call the prophetic, or the prophets. He wrote what we call prophecy. Now, prophecy, as we said last week, was not so much, the primary intent of prophecy was not some predictive future kind of looking forward. That was not the primary intent. There may be a thread of that, and there very well is, running through much of the prophetic literature, but that was not the primary intent. Last week we said, prophecy, I think, can be most simply understood as a message from God to a particular people in a particular place at a particular time. And so if we're going to understand, we've kind of looked at this is who Isaiah was. Now, this is what we mean by prophetic. It's a message, it's prophecy, a message from God. And so we can think of Isaiah as then the messenger who brought the what? The message. He was the one who brought the message. Think of it as the prophets, as the human messenger or the mouthpiece delivering the prophecy. At a particular time, I've already told you that, 8th century BC primarily, around 742, and then onward, and for decades, and to a particular people, the Israelite people, there. That said, it certainly has much to say to us today as well, as we'll dive into. The audience met these messages, or these prophecies, given to a particular people. Typically in the Bible, we said last week, the audiences fall in one of two different categories, written to people, either, number one, facing some kind of impending trouble or difficult season, like the prophet saw it on the horizon. Due to our disobedience, due to our constant going our own way, I think we're going to be in trouble. And so oftentimes the prophets write warnings, a lot of our warnings that, hey, listen up. If we do not stop this behavior, something is going to happen to us. And so you have that as one audience. Second one are people who are actually experiencing in the present the result of what they did not heed. And so we called this exile. We see this two major times in the biblical story. One, in 722 BC, so we're talking 20 years after Isaiah begins to write, the Assyrian Empire conquers the northern kingdom of Samaria and takes many of the Israelite people to the capital city of Nineveh. So much of Isaiah's prophetic writing is written 20 years later to those people. The other being the Babylonian exile of 586, 587 BC, when Nebuchadnezzar takes out the southern kingdom, and much of the writing is kind of geared that way as well. So then, Isaiah, prophetic. What the heck is a prophetic imagination? I think this word imagination is one of the gifts of the prophets. I said this last week, but I believe this is one of the gifts the prophets like Isaiah and the messages they give us or they declare. This is one of the gifts that they provide, because in so many ways, these writings, these visions, it's almost like they open a window to see a new reality. It's like, I didn't see that. But they open, as it were, windows to look through and actually see with different eyes. Oh, God might actually be doing this. I didn't see that because of my present circumstance or what's about to come. But maybe God is up to something bigger than what I was thinking. Secondly, we said this as well, they serve as a bridge, I would call a redemptive bridge, between our present reality and the future promises of God. I know this can't be where this story ends, but how are we going to get there? I have no imagination for how I'm actually going to get to redemption, and what these writings do is they show us the way. They say, hey, walk across this bridge with me, and I'll actually take you to a more redemptive, more hope-filled story. And so as such, they serve as bridges between one way of seeing or one way of imagining the world or imagining our reality and another way, which I would say is the way of God. God's way of imagining that exact same reality. Are we tracking? Does this, okay, we're kind of making sense. We're doing okay. All right, so then what the prophets then offer is what we would call an alternative reality. This may seem like reality, but there may be an alternative. You just haven't looked through that window yet. You haven't crossed that bridge yet. And that understandably, when you're presented an alternative reality to where the story is going, that may take a little bit of what? Imagination. You're like, oh, I can't even imagine that changing about us, about our story. It could take a little bit of imagination, which is the gift of, again, the gift of the prophets. Now, I think it could be so easy to see that word, because most of us, when we think of imagination, we think of some, like I said, some, I don't know, dream world, right? Utopian state, some fanciful, whimsical kind of reality that seems like only a dream, but it doesn't really exist. Like Wonka's Chocolate Factory, right? It takes a lot of, isn't there a song, doesn't that open into a world of imagination, like, or Oz, or what I suppose Disneyland is to most people, right? It's a kind of world that we in some way hope exists, but we know at a certain level it doesn't really. That's not what prophetic imagination is. It is not, oh, well, in La La Land someday, I believe that maybe this could change. I want to argue that it's much, much different than that. The late Presbyterian pastor, author, professor, Eugene Peterson, that was one of his favorite words in his writing. He constantly talked about developing a biblical imagination. We need to have a bigger imagination. We need to have what he called a spiritual imagination. And when he used that word, he was describing imagination not as a life or a world or a family that we hoped could possibly exist, but at some level we knew, that's never really going to be possible. He's like, that's not at all what we're talking about, like a pipe dream or some kind of fantasy world. He talked about spiritual imagination as this, I'll just quote him, the spirit-embodied capacity to see the world as it really is. God's world, bursting with redemption, goodness, wholeness, and possibility. And so I read something like that and I wonder, how often do we settle for an existence that is far less than we were created for? We have such a small imagination for our family. We have such a small imagination for our neighborhood, our community, our country, our world. It's such a small imagination for our own lives. And a spiritual imagination says, wow, this is God's world, and it's bursting with redemption and goodness and wholeness and possibility. You just got to throw open that window and look a little bit differently. We are invited by the Spirit of God, I would argue, to the most real, fulfilling, beautiful way of existing in the world. That's the alternative reality. It's a way built on truth and hope and ultimately the kingdom of God. And so with that, let me invite you back to where we ended last week, Isaiah 40. We started Isaiah 40 last week. If you have a Bible, after reading the beginning part of Isaiah 40, and then we stopped in like verses 9, 10, or 11, somewhere around there, and I thought, we've got to finish this chapter because there is just so much great imagination in this chapter that will take us across a bridge if we'll follow it. So we're going to go back there. So let me pray, and then we'll dive into Isaiah 40. So Lord, as we now read your word, we ask that you would speak. Open our minds. Give us bigger imaginations for what you want to do in our lives, in our families, in our places of work, in this church, in this community. Even for these things that we have on the horizon, give us bigger dreams, we pray, and lead us there. We trust you. And as we listen to your word today, we pray that you would speak. In Jesus' name, amen. Before we read a little bit more of Isaiah's prophetic imagination that's laid out in Isaiah 40, I want to start by talking about this word, questions. If you have raised a child or are currently raising a child or have worked if you work with children in any capacity, or you have any interaction with children, then you know, you are familiar with questions, are you not? I read this week that the average 4-year-old asks between 200 to 400 questions per day. So there you go. Some of you who are fast approaching a 4-year-old in the near future. 2 to 4, and some of you know that to be true. You remember those days, don't you? Most of those questions start with the word mom or mommy, don't they? That's the vast majority of those questions start with that word, mommy, and then a question. 200 to 400 questions a day. When you are in the midst of a challenging, difficult, complex situation or season, like the one in which the recipients of Isaiah 40 were facing, that I have just described, exile, being taken away from their homeland, city lying in ruins, capital city, temple, epicenter of their religion and culture, destroyed, burned to the ground, hopelessness, just in the air. That can lead to a lot of what? That can lead to 200 to 400 questions a day, can't it? Really quick, where you start questioning everything. So help me out for a minute, and what I'd like you to do, little crowd participation, throw out some questions you think would be quite natural to ask if you found yourself in the situation that the people that we are about to read the story, or what is happening, written to them, and what kind of questions would you be asking? Questions like, why? Thank you. Why? Why did we... Are you serious? They burned our capital to the ground and took all the wealthy, all the money, everything out of it back to Babylon. Are you serious? Why? What else? What other questions? When is this going to end? Is it ever going to end? Will I die in Babylon or Assyria? Is this where I'm raising my family now as a slave? What did we do to get here? We must have done something to get here. What other questions? I thought we were supposed to win. Weren't we the covenant people of promise? I thought we were supposed to be on the winning side. If this is winning, I hate to see what losing looks like. Holy cow. Any other questions? What is God up to? Is God actually doing anything? What were you thinking? You allowed this to happen. Do you even care that we're here? That our kids are being raised as slaves? Do you even, yeah. I mean, that's are you even there? I mean, these are the great existential questions of humanity, aren't they? That are very natural. I just started making a list sitting in the coffee shop this week. I just list, how did this happen? How did we get here? Why did this happen? What do we do now? What do we do now that this has happened? Where do we go from here? Who's in control? Where is God? Has he forgotten the covenant? What do we hope for now? Is there any hope for redemption, salvation? Where should we put our hope and trust? Where are we going? And what will the future hold? All reasonable questions. And so for the next few weeks, as we work through Isaiah, we're just going to work through some of those questions. And I thought the one that I wanted to choose today, because I think it ties into Isaiah 40, at least the rest of Isaiah 40. So for the rest of our time, I want to tackle this one. What on earth do we do now that this has happened? We find ourselves in a difficult, complex, unimaginable situation. We don't even know how we got here. And I think one of the natural questions is, so what next? Like, what do we do because this is our present reality, right? At some point in our life, we look in the mirror and we go, I got here. I don't know how I got here. I don't know why. But I cannot ignore this is reality of my life at present. And I think we start to wonder that question, don't we? Where do we go from here? What on earth do we do now? Isaiah himself starts in today's, I'm going to start in verse 21 of Isaiah 40. And Isaiah starts like a 4-year-old. With a litany of questions, rhetorical questions. He's got questions upon questions upon questions. Count them as, we're going to read about 10 verses. We'll just go to the end of Isaiah 40. Count the questions. Ready? Do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been told to you from the beginning? Have you not understood since the earth was founded? I'm at 4. He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and its people are like grasshoppers. He, that being God, stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live in. He brings princes to naught and reduces the rulers of this world to nothing. No sooner are they planted, no sooner are they sown, no sooner do they take root in the ground, than he blows on them, and they wither. And a whirlwind sweeps them away like chaff. Ready for some more questions? Here we go. To whom will you compare me? Who is my equal, says the Holy One? Lift up your eyes, look to the heavens. Who created all these? He brings out the starry host one by one and calls forth each of them by name. Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. Why do you complain, Jacob? Great question. Why do you say, Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord? My cause is disregarded by my God. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary. And his understanding, no one can fathom. It's like, I know you can't understand why any of this happened. You're not going to be able to, so stop asking. He's not done. He gives strength to the weary, increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary. Young men stumble and fall. But those who hope, also be translated, those who wait for the Lord, will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Anybody see the prophetic imagination there? An alternate reality of the world that we so often live in. He just paints, it's beautiful, isn't it? He paints this beautiful picture. I don't know how many you caught. I counted 10 question marks. 10 questions. In roughly 10 to 11 verses, the prophet lays out before us these questions. Chapter started, if you remember last week, Isaiah 40 starts with comfort my people. It starts with words of comfort, words of hope, words of assurance, words of affirmation, because remember who this is written to, right? He's writing words of comfort. But as you read on, and you kind of read on in the chapter, these chapter that started with these tender words of hope and comfort and promise, you start to get the sneaking suspicion that not all who received this, not all sitting in exile, found solace. There was some consternation, wasn't there? There was some questions being asked by people, which is really, really normal. And so the prophet takes on some of those. This is why we get questions like the one in verse 27. Why do you complain, Jacob? Question I often meditate on and ponder myself for personal reasons. You can insert your name. Why do you complain? Oh, insert your name. And then this is like the first question. Why are you complaining? Why do you say, Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord. My cause is disregarded by my God. Isaiah anticipates that people facing difficult, tiring, exhausting circumstances, that when people face this, they are prone to feeling what? Unseen by God. I mean, that's what he says. My way is hidden from the Lord. In other words, you don't what? You don't even see me, do you? Or worse, if he takes it even a step further, that God has rejected them and no longer cares. He's like, why have you disregarded? My cause is disregarded. If someone is disregarding you, they don't what? They don't care. They're like absent. They're like, yeah, I heard your complaint, don't care. Just don't care. That's how these people are feeling, or he wouldn't write that, would he? From comfort to why are you complaining? Why do you keep saying, God doesn't see me? God doesn't even care about me? Or maybe even worse than worse, maybe God's just a lot less powerful than we thought. Maybe the Babylonians and their gods, their pantheon of gods, because Lord knows they had them, maybe their gods are just much stronger than ours. Maybe the gods of this world, it's just hopeless. Those are the questions being asked by these people. And when you feel like that, I imagine quite quickly you will start to feel overwhelmed and dread, won't you? You will become absolutely overwhelmed by those emotions. It will cause dread, it will cause exhaustion, and it will quickly lead you to places of despair. And that's when we need a bigger imagination, which is the gift of Isaiah. Because have you ever found yourselves having similar feelings in any way? Where you are absolutely overwhelmed by something that is outside of your control, but it is like a tidal wave overwhelming you. You're like, I didn't ask for this. This was brought to me. I'm feeling overwhelmed. It's out of my control. And when that happens, it's one of the most exhausting things in the world, isn't it? It is just downright exhausting. It's exhausting mentally. It's constantly on your mind. Probably 5 minutes doesn't go by that you don't think about that thing, right? Some of you are like, thank you, Jacob, for bringing that up right now, because now I'm thinking about that thing that I'm feeling overwhelmed about. 5 minutes go by. It's the first thought you have when you wake up, and probably the last thought you have going to bed. And if you wake up at 2 a.m., not to use the restroom, but it's like on your mind, right? It's overwhelming. It's tiring. It's exhausting mentally, physically. It's like a burden that you carry emotionally, and of course, spiritually. I don't even know how to pray about this. It feels so overwhelming. And that can take us to some pretty interesting places. And what it does is you begin to lose what? Imagination. It begins to suck away your imagination for how things could be different, just shrinks exponentially. Because it's all you can see. It's the only thing. You begin to lose all imagination for how things will ever not be overwhelming or how you will not be tired of whatever it is. This is a trivial example, but this week I was remembering our first few months, maybe an entire year, I don't recall now, of being parents. Do you remember those days? The first few months, our amazing daughter is back from university today, but she slept in 20-minute increments. That was it. Every nap was about 20 minutes long. All night, 20 minutes. If the pacifier fell out of her mouth, I know you're probably not supposed to sleep, but we were desperate. Just stop. The pacifier came out, crying up again, the whole thing. And so I just remember how as new parents, I just remember being slightly overwhelmed, feeling like, oh my goodness, and just absolutely exhausted physically. And it just trying to get through a day with just absolute exhaustion. I have this memory of, we had this exercise ball in the corner of our bedroom, and the one way we could get Grace to sleep would be holding her and bouncing on the exercise ball, like sitting on and that rhythmic bouncing on the ball would eventually lull her back to sleep for about 20 minutes. And then you'd gingerly lay her back down in the bassinet, and a few minutes later, up again, on the bouncing ball again, or just standing in the middle of our dark room, just watching the clock, right? 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., thinking, my alarm's going off at 6 a.m., I'm running out, and then you get desperate, right? I have this one memory of bouncing Grace at like 2 a.m. and looking at our dog at that time, who was sleeping on his dirty, stinky dog bed in the corner of our room, and I'm bouncing her and looking at my dog, who's snoring at that time. And I remember this thought, I would give anything to be on that dog bed right now. I would give anything to switch places with that dog on that stinky, grimy dog bed, because he's asleep. I remember having that just being so intensely jealous of our dog Harley at that time, because he was asleep and I was exhausted and I was not. And then I remember thinking, he doesn't even care. He doesn't see me sitting here on this bouncy ball, bouncing this child. He doesn't care. He's not going to do anything about it. He's never going to get up. He's no help. All he's going to do is what? Lay there and sleep. And you know what he's going to do all day when I go to work? Lay around the house and what? Sleep. And I just remember being angry. He doesn't care that I haven't slept all night. And somehow that's like how we are with God, right? Those when you're exhausted and tired, that's just where it goes. Is that reality? Now, all right, amazingly enough, fast forward, Grace has been home all week. She has slept through the night all weekend. She has not, I have not bounced her on that bouncy ball in about 18 and a half years. She, amazingly enough, in hindsight, she sleeps through the night now. It's unreal. They all do, most of them, at some point. And I think there's something to that. So what do we do now? That's the question, right? What do we do now? Where do we go from here? Because we feel overwhelmed and exhausted and not even really sure if God sees or even cares or is going to do anything about what's just absolutely exhausting me. Well, if you've ever felt like that, or if you're like, that's kind of how I feel right now, let me just assure you of this. You're very biblical, number one. And you're in very good biblical company, because that seems to be how a lot of humans have felt down through the years, going through seasons where you're like, will this ever end? Or is this just my lot in life? Those were the questions people were asking. And this is the moment where we have to enlarge our imaginations and press into what I would call Isaiah's prophetic imagination for the way forward, or else we'll get stuck. We got to throw open that window and walk across that redemptive way and trust an alternative reality to lead us forward. Let me show you that real quick. What does Isaiah's prophetic imagination say? If we jump to the end and we see where Isaiah lands, this chapter, it's a prophetic imagination that I would say it involves an exchange. But it's not an exchange everyone's willing to make. And the exchange is this: what he offers by the grace of God and through the Spirit and the power of God, he offers exchanging exhaustion and overwhelm for his peace and renewed strength each day, day by day by day. That's what's on offer. That's the imagination. And I know some of us are like, I could not imagine in that moment on the bouncy ball. I'm like, I will never sleep again. This is my present reality, and I will never sleep again. But what Isaiah says, if you will hang, he says, if you will keep walking forward, that's where this is going. Go back to verse 28. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. Now, this is such good news. He will not grow tired. I know you are, because you're supposed to be, right? You're human. But he doesn't grow tired or weary. And I know in your mind, you're like, you don't understand this. You don't understand why. That's a great question. I wish I had an answer. And pastorally, for most things nowadays, I'm like, I don't know. And some of the answers wouldn't even help if we could come up with one. You'd be like, well, that doesn't help. He says, his understanding no one can fathom, but here's the promise. He gives strength. That's the exchange. He'll exchange your weariness for his strength. He'll increase the power of the weak. Paul will later say, it's when I'm weak that I'm what? Then I find my strength. I admit my weakness. I admit my exhaustion. See, even youths grow tired and weary. I have my doubts with 6th grade boys right now. I'm actually taking a mental health day from school tomorrow because of 6th grade boys, and I don't believe that applies to them, including the one I'm raising. Youths grow tired and weary, except for 6th grade boys. Young men stumble and fall. They do. They really do, including 6th grade boys. But he says, those who hope in the Lord, they'll renew their strength. They'll soar on wings they'll run and not grow weary. They'll walk. It's the life we all imagine. It's the life we dream about, isn't it? It's the life that some of us have no imagination for right now. You mean I could actually go through life, run, and not get absolutely tired out? Or have strength in the midst of what I perceive as just incredible weakness? A life that I'm not always tired and weary and frustrated and riddled with anxiety? You mean that's possible? That would take a bit of imagination. Because I don't even know if that's possible. Soaring on wings like eagles? What a majestic, beautiful imagination. This is so much larger or more hopeful, is it, than just, well, I'm just trying to get through. Another week. How you doing? Tired. Busy. I mean, those are two American things. If you're ever asked how you're doing, it's one of two things, right? You're either tired or you're what? Busy. I'm tired, just busy. Or that's just my lot in life, just the way it is. Didn't go my way. Well, how's that going to change? I don't know. Probably never will. Just the way it is. You know, what I'm trying to give us as I'm speaking to myself, what I'm trying to give us today, I'm not just trying to give us some spiritual wishful thinking. This is not spiritual optimism, unrealistic optimism. This is prophetic imagination. This is Isaiah's prophetic imagination for what is actually possible through the grace of God and empowered by the Spirit of God. I believe this is an alternative reality that is offered to every single human being. But it's a choice you make. This way of living, you don't get there by accident. You don't accidentally exchange exhaustion and overwhelm for a life of peace and renewed strength day by day. It is not accidental. To live this kind of reality where we're not always tired and harried and tapped out and fast-tracking ourselves towards anxiety and despair, this will require something of us. It will. It always does. Because moving from exhaustion to overwhelm, which think about the season we're coming into in 5 weeks. I mean, talk about exhaustion and overwhelm and tired and busy. To move from exhaustion and overwhelm to renewed strength, this takes a high level of intentionality, and I do believe it is conditional. And the one condition, I'm going to give it to you, so what's the condition? It's actually there in the last verse. It is found in verse 31. It is the only condition found in the last verse, and it's this: but. It's like, I know, you get tired, you get weary, you stumble, you fall, you mess it up, but, the prophet says, and this is the turn, the imagination, those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. In the NRSV, it's same word, but those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings like eagles. They run and not be weary. Did you catch the condition? The condition, he says, what do we do now? To answer this question, what do we do now? In the Hebrew, it's the word kavah, and it can be translated hope, and it equally can be translated wait. So what do we do now? We wait. And we hope. Or you could put them both together and say what? We wait with hope. That's what we do now. I believe Isaiah's prophetic answer and our answer to that very common question, so what do I do now? I believe this is it. But it takes a bit of imagination. So let me end by talking about what does it mean to wait with hope? Because that word wait, some of us are like, that is not helpful. For you to tell me, oh, just wait, that is not helpful. So can I give you a bigger imagination for wait? Kavah in Hebrew. It's tied to hope. And I believe it's this. Waiting and hoping. I know it might seem counterintuitive and counterproductive when facing a difficult situation that you just want to get out of, right? Because our human inclination is just to what? Fix it, solve it, get out of it. Quick as possible, right? Relieve the tension. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to live this way. I'll just, quickly as possible, I want out of this. So the first thing I'll say about waiting is, in the biblical sense, waiting is never a passive endeavor. This is not passively just sitting there and saying, I guess I'll just wait for something. I'll wait for them to change, I guess. I'll wait for a better job, I guess. I'll wait for my kids to actually start respecting me, I guess. I'll just wait, I'll wait. And we just passively let life happen. That is not biblical waiting. That is not what he means by that. This is not waiting like a bus stop. Well, I guess I'll just wait here and hope the bus comes. And if it doesn't, all right, whatever. This is not waiting at the DMV for them to call like now serving number, J47 at window number 9. Even as you feel like I am losing my soul sitting in this large room waiting for them to call my number. Have you had that feeling? Like I am literally wasting my life sitting here waiting for J47 at window 9. It's not that kind of waiting. Biblical waiting and the kind of waiting that Isaiah imagines that ultimately brings hope and strength and power day by day is actively tied to remembering God's faithfulness in the past and expecting him to do the same in the future. So I wait, remembering God's past faithfulness, God's past actions on our behalf. Because when we are in that situation, whatever it is, we tend to what? Forget. Remember, our imagination shrinks. All we can see is the present reality right in front of us. We forget when we're tired and exhausted and overwhelmed and wondering why God has failed to act on our behalf. That was certainly the case for Israel. And when we're feeling that way, our perception of reality just narrows, doesn't it? It narrows. And it causes us to look through what I would say a very limited imagination, which is why the antidote, I believe, and the one condition is remembering who God is and what God has consistently done for us. We sang about that as our final song through musical worship today. You've been what? Through the years, you've been good to me. So good to me, so good to me. You just remember. It's remembering what it does. Because when we remember, here's what it does. At a neurobiological level, it reshapes and reforms our imagination. It reminds us, it takes us back, it reforms our imagination to see reality for what it truly is. And we begin to realize, I've been believing a lie. I've been living a delusion. It takes us back, remembering. And thus, Isaiah's 2 rhetorical questions in succession in 21 and in verse 28. Do you not know? In other words, come on, you know, right? Have you not heard? Go back to your past. Twice repeats the same questions. The Lord is the everlasting God. Who is the Lord? The everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. This is who God is. Well, what's he like? He won't grow tired or weary. His understanding no one can fathom. And it's interesting because if you back up real quick, we didn't read this in our reading today, but if you go back to like Isaiah 40, 12 to 14. Oh, real quick, here it is. There's a whole bunch more questions that all answer this. It's like Isaiah is spending all this time. He's trying to jog the collective memory of the people. Jog their memory for who God is and all God. And how does he do that? With a whole bunch more questions. Who has measured the waters in the hollow of the earth? Who has held the dust of the earth in a basket? Who can fathom the Spirit of the Lord or instruct the Lord as his counselor? Whom did the Lord consult? Who taught him the right way? Who taught him knowledge and showed him the path of understanding? It's like questions and questions and questions. He's taking them back and jogging your memory. And the answer, he's kind of being facetious in some ways to all of those, is nobody. God is everlasting God. And so the comfort that we yearn for, that is found in verse 1, I think is connected to our ability to remember these things. The peace and the power and the renewed strength that we yearn from, it's deeply tied to remembering who God is and what God has done. And this is what waiting in the biblical sense looks like. And when we wait like that, actively remembering, until our circumstances change, it leads to what? Hope and renewed strength. Even as our present circumstances might not change eventually, but they eventually will. And then he ends this way. When we do, the promise is eventually we'll find ourselves what? Soaring on wings, he says, like eagles. We'll find ourselves rising above whatever challenges there might be. And like eagles, he says, we will embody, and here's the kicker, he says, you will then embody the power and the strength and the confidence of the one in whose image you've been created. You will soar like an eagle. This is not God carrying you like in Exodus 19 where it says, you carried us as like an eagle. No. You will soar like your creator. So what do we do now? Where do we go from here? A limited imagination says, we go nowhere. We accept this may be our lot in life. This is my identity. This is who I am. This is recompense for getting what we likely deserve. We passively wait for something to change with no expectation that it actually will. That is a limited, small imagination. Prophetic imagination says, this actually might be time to soar. This might be your season to soar. We remember who we are and in whose we are. we remember mercy, we remember goodness, and we actively wait by remembering God's faithfulness and goodness to us. And as we do, we find our strength is renewed each day as we tap into that. My strength is renewed so that we can what? Run and not be weary, walk and not be faint. Rainier, why don't you come on? Could you do that song? Let's end with that. You've been so good to me. That's a song of remembrance. So maybe let's end here. And then I would like to just, I know some of you will need to leave, but some of you came in here today, and it's interesting that even Abigail shared Jesus' words for the tired and the exhausted, which were, "Come to me, all you who are weary." If you just came today and you are in any way in a state of overwhelm or exhaustion, you are tired, you are beaten down, and you're asking this question, I don't even know what to do now. I don't even know what my next step is. I don't know what we're supposed to do. I don't know where we go from here. Would you just hang back and let us minister to you and pray with you? I think what we'd like to do as we close is maybe help some of us build redemptive bridges. Kind of open our imagination a little bit from the present reality to the future promise. And so maybe let's do this all together, and then we'll just kind of offer that for anybody who wants to stay back. Can we sing that refrain one more time about the goodness? And then maybe let's just share real briefly, how has God been good to us? How has God, just start thinking, how has God been good to you? Remember, think back. How has God? And let's let this begin to, as we wait, begin to build some hope. So let's just sing that part. Gabe, you can put those words up, I think.